What's up, guys? I hope you're doing well. James here from jamesdforsythe.com. And why even red pill the monetary system, right? I wanted to come on here and do a bit of a kind of explainer video on the reasons for the channel itself and for all the stuff that I do and that sort of thing, and kind of give some reasoning and also kind of articulate why I chose the way I chose, right? And so basically, and why the monetary system in general, not necessarily just because of interests, um, but I think it's kind of fundamentally important, not only for myself and for family members and but people in general, right? Because I've noticed even those people who study money and kind of learn that game, so to speak, become investors and all that kind of stuff. Um, a lot of the times they don't really understand the monetary system itself and like how it actually works. And everyone kind of has more of like the mainstream argument of, you know, like basically it all revolves around the Fed and that sort of thing, and you know how exactly does it work, and they all have their kind of this, I'll say, mainstream idea of how it works. And one of the things that I've started to notice as I go through things is that that's not necessarily the case. Like, there's some places to where it's honestly just plain wrong. And there's actually been, like, if you look throughout history, and that's specifically with the Federal Reserve and their members and the speeches they give, they come out and directly say, you know, this isn't how it works a few times. And there's multiple examples of that throughout basically the past 100 years or so, right? And so as I started to notice this, I kind of wanted to bring that to light, right? And just that's kind of the whole purpose of this channel in general is like I don't kind of tout myself to be an expert in any form or fashion. I'm just trying to learn about this stuff and just kind of being completely transparent in that process in general, right? To where I'm bringing out the information, and the whole point is to discuss it, learn about it further. So, like, it's like if you notice everything that I talk about, the videos that I do, it's normally pointing at a specific topic from one point of view, and then I'll come through and do another one, or like what I mean is like another point of view, and kind of looking at it in a different light and trying to understand it, right? And so with that being said, that's kind of the why of the channel in the first place. But there's also the fact that why did I choose the monetary system? And a lot of it has to do with like the psychology of money itself. I've noticed like it's a very interesting topic in that respect of how people actually interact with it, why they don't learn it, and kind of how that's reflected in the people themselves, in terms of not just personality but habits and a whole bunch of other stuff. Who you are as a person, how that really reflects in how much wealth you have in a way, and how that kind of also carries over into different aspects of your life, right? Because there's more to wealth than just the money aspect of it. There's so many other different forms. And basically what I've noticed is if you look at a lot of the, I don't really want to say rich people because that kind of encompasses too much. There's this kind of a very specific type of, I guess we'll say, investor in a way, to where you can see that their life itself is pretty rich, and not necessarily only in a monetary form. But I've noticed as they kind of branch out and change, they there are a lot of similarities between the people who have very rich lives, not only in a monetary sense, in terms of personality and habits and that sort of thing. And kind of learning those and implementing those and kind of becoming those in a way, and constantly trying to learn and improve, brings into that. And that kind of goes into the whole why I talk a little bit about personal development and a lot of the books and stuff that I read and do these reviews, because one, I like to read, and so that's part of the reason why that's the thing. Also, the fact that, you know, there's a certain degree of personal development required to basically maintain wealth, right? You can get it, but you're not necessarily going to keep it if you don't have certain habits or act a certain way, sort of thing. Everyone hears about, you know, the lottery winners who basically go bankrupt, quite literally. And so that's kind of plays into the fact itself. So that being said, there's also the idea of just kind of creating a community in a sense, of people who want to learn about this stuff, truly understand it, aren't just kind of trying to push their own specific thing. They only look at something through that specific lens, which I think is a very great way to look at it. If you really think of just trying to understand topics in general, I really think it's accurate to say you're looking at it through a lens, which involves your own biases, your own perspective, and that sort of thing. Which is why I chose specifically to frame it as kind of the red pill sort of thing. Kind of, and it's not necessarily being like, okay, this is how things actually works. It's a kind of a continuous, it's a continuous process and action of trying to learn, right? And looking at it from different points of view and tweaking your lens and that sort of thing so you can see it in a better light. And looking at the different nuances and trying to understand the different points of view, because when you realize how dynamic and chaotic this world can actually be, it's necessary. I think you have to look at it from that point of view. And again, that's kind of the whole point of all of this, is to try to understand and create that community of other people trying to understand, and just kind of go from there. Obviously not going to say that I have all the answers, because I obviously don't. Anyone who says they do is probably lying or trying to sell you something. But it's you have to attack it from the perspective of the perpetual student, I think. And that kind of goes back onto a little bit of history of what the how this originally started when I made my first website. It was supposed to be called Forever Student, but that was already taken. That's like it's like a foreign language learning website or something. But instead, I went with alwayslearningandImproving.com. Way too long of a domain name, harder to remember, didn't go so well, and so kind of turned into more of a personalized personal brand thing in a way, and just kind of trying to create that sense of, how to word it, continuous learning and development, not only as a person that's required, but also to kind of fulfill not just personal means, but help others do so as well. And so kind of really trying to help in that respect, but also by doing that, it develops yourself in a way. And that's why I like doing the on the fly videos, to where they're not scripted. And I mean, like even right now, I have basically a few bullet points as a notes, but I don't write a script or anything like that, because I've noticed when I do that, you don't really synthesize the information as well as you do on the fly. And so like trying to actively articulate it in a way really helps my own understanding, which may also help others as well, right? And so that's kind of the whole point, is to try to provide value for other people, and in the act of doing so, it also helps me at least understand it to a greater degree, which I think is always kind of the first step, right? But anyways, that's pretty much why I chose to frame it the way that I do, in terms of like the red pill, the monetary system, and that sort of thing. And that kind of reflects in, I think, to truly understand it, you can't just look at how it acts now. You have to look at it in somewhat of a historical context, and you really have to understand, like the history behind what we're dealing with, the system we're in, that sort of thing. And with that, I'm meaning specifically like a monetary system, but there's a lot more to it than that. And it's kind of the continuous search that kind of frames everything, I think. But anyways, I'm going to leave this one here. That's kind of explains why in a nutshell. So yeah, I'm just going to leave this one here. So I hope you guys have a good night, and I'll see you on the next one.